Okay, so from the in the last class we have started with the memory management. We discussed the brief idea why we call operating system as one of the pillar of operating system as memory manager, and what is the need of memory management that we have discussed. Today, just in a brief, again I am repeating, today we are not happy just having a single program to be executed in your system at a time. So we look for a faster system. We want to give more and more tasks to the system such that it will be executed concurrently. Now, a program to be executed by the CPU, the program must be loaded in the main memory. That is the basic philosophy of computing. Now, if you have 4, 5, 6 program at the same time you are giving for execution, then all the 4, 5, 6 program must be loaded in the main memory. Now you have a fixed size of main memory, maybe 4 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM or 16 GB RAM. So now how efficiently that 4 GB, 8 GB or 16 GB RAM can be allocated to all these 5, 6, 10 concurrently running program. That is the main objective of memory management. How efficiently you can dynamically allocate the memory space to all the concurrently running program, and while one program gets executed, that space will be released such that some other program can also use the same space. Okay, so with that philosophy, that chapter memory management come into the picture in the curriculum of operating system. So this is the brief background. What is compile time, load time, execution time? What are the things happen during these phases that we have discussed? Now, very important thing that we discussed in the last class, the logical address and the physical address, and the difference between the logical address and physical address. So during the execution of the instruction by the CPU generates a logical address. Logical address means each and every program executed by the system will be treated as a single program by the CPU. And the address of those instructions of those programs are called the logical address. So during the execution of the program, address generated by the CPU for the instruction of that particular program is called the logical address. Whereas the physical address is the actual address of the silicon device, that means the main memory or the RAM. Huh? Hello? Anything you want? Hello? Anyway, so physical address is the actual address of the main memory. That means in the physical device, physical main memory, where your instructions and data is actually located. Now you may have a questions, what is the need of keeping two different addressing scheme? Though in a very brief I discussed what is the difference or what is the need of these two, but gradually when we go through the deeper of this chapter, you will be more clear with the difference between the logical address and the physical address, and what is the need of keeping two addressing scheme. Okay, then you have a memory management unit, which is some kind of a program that map a logical address generated by the CPU to its corresponding physical address in the main memory. So there is some kind of mapping between the logical address to the physical address, because to fetch the actual data and the instruction from the silicon device or the main memory, you need to go to the physical location of the main memory. So you need to go to that physical location, and that's why you need the physical address. So CPU may generate the logical address during the execution, but to fetch the actual data and instructions from the main memory, you need to know the actual physical address. So there should be a mapping from logical address to physical address, and that particular work is being done in the memory management unit. Then we have discussed how logical address is mapped to physical address in a very brief, once a CPU generates a logical address, that logical address will be added with the base register value, and that will give you the actual address in the physical memory where the actual data or the instructions is loaded. Then we discuss dynamic loading thinking. Okay, next, this is a very important next the new thing that we'll be discussing from today, swapping. Now, as you know, that you may write your program and you can save in the secondary disk, maybe hard disk, maybe pen drive, maybe CD. Now, to allow that program to be executed by the system, you need to submit it, and you need to give some kind of command to execute that particular program. The next step is the program will be copied. The program will be copied from secondary memory. This is your secondary memory. This is the symbol of secondary memory, the drum-like symbol. This drum-like cylinder symbol is called the secondary disk. Maybe it can be hard disk, it can be your CD, it can be your pen drive, it can be your external hard disk. So this is a secondary disk. So initially your program is in the secondary disk. Maybe program P1, P2, P3, n number of program you can have. When you give command for executing a particular program, the program will be loaded from secondary memory to main memory. So loading the program is nothing but the instructions of program P2 will be copied to some location in the main memory. That means some of the physical location of the main memory. There is some physical location in the main memory. That is a physical address. So this instruction of P2 will be loaded from secondary to primary memory. Then this instruction will be executed by the CPU. So CPU can execute the instruction only when the instructions are in the main memory. Instructions or data, whatever, that will be in the main memory. Without that, CPU cannot execute. That means CPU cannot execute an instructions which is not in the main memory. So to allow an instruction to be executed by the CPU, the instruction must be in the main memory. So in that philosophy, we can bring the inference that to allow process P2 to be executed, it needs to come from secondary to primary memory. It may so happen while P2 is coming, maybe some other process which was earlier running maybe get executed. So it will be swap out. So it is going back from main memory to secondary, maybe after some modification and all. So this is called swap in, copying the instructions, data or the program from the secondary disk to primary memory is called swap in. What is swap out? When an currently running program gets executed or may be interrupted because of some reason, then the currently running program will be swapped out, and that space will be free such that this space can be used by some incoming process. So the existing program will be deleted or maybe swap out, we can say, from primary memory to secondary memory, and that space will be free such that this space can be used for executing some other incoming processes. This entire process is called swap in and swap out. Now We discussed in the last class that typically our main memory looks like this. This space is fixed for OS. This space is user space where your program are running. Okay. Now think in a hypothetical situation where we are only habituated just by running a single program at a time. That means this entire user space is dedicated for executing only one program. There is no other program that is being used that uses this particular space. So there is no need of any kind of partition. Right? The entire user space will be used for executing a single program. If you have a dedicated classroom, for 5th semester CS batch, then we don't need any class routine for allocation of that particular classroom, because that particular classroom is dedicated for the 5th semester. But the situation is not like that. We are not ready to execute only one program at a time. Rather, our requirement has been enhanced a lot. Today, at a time, we want to give more and more program to the system for execution simultaneously. Maybe we give 5, 6, 7 program at a time to give for execution. So all these 5, 6 program will be executed by the CPU simultaneously. So in other way, we can say all these 5, 6 program will be using this space simultaneously. All these 5, 6 program which are concurrently running at the same time will be using this space same time. Now what can be the possible way you can allocate this space to this 5, 6 program? What will be the possible way of allocating the space to 5, 6 program? Okay, now there can be, first thing, there can be contiguous allocation. That means you have an incoming program. That program requires maybe 2 MB space. So you want to go for contiguous allocations. So this 2 MB space needs to be given fixed. That means it should be in a contiguous fashion. Maybe some other program is coming with a requirement of 5 MB space. So you will be giving the space for 5 MB. In this way it goes on. But the problem is all the program will not be coming at the same time to the system, and all the program will not be completed at the same time. So their incoming process and the execution time both are very dynamic. That means they can come to the system in any moment of time and they may be finished at any moment of time. Some program may get executed earlier, some program may get executed later. Then there is a question that whether that space can be used by some other program to be executed. On that philosophy, there is a concept of memory allocation. how efficiently you can allocate this space to these incoming processes. So this can be categorized in a very broader sense. It is a contiguous allocation, contiguous and non-contiguous. Just like the example we have in our hand is array and linked list. For contiguous allocation, if a program requirement is 2 MB, you have to give 2 MB contiguous space. If you go for non-contiguous allocations, then that 2 MB requirement can be anywhere in the entire RAM. Maybe 500 KB is in this space, another 500 KB in this space, maybe 1 MB from this space. So they may not be contiguous. So that's why that is called non-contiguous allocations. So through this entire chapter, we will be discussing the contiguous allocation, non-contiguous allocations and their limitations, how that can be resolved, and what are the issues, pros and cons and all. Now, if you go for, first we will be discussing the contiguous allocations. First we will be discussing the contiguous allocation, and then we will be going for non-contiguous allocation. So for contiguous allocations, you can have fixed number of partition. Fixed number of partition. That means the entire space is divided into some fixed size block. And the other one can be no fixed size, and I mean no fixed partition. No fixed partition. Under the fixed partition, you can have same size partition. It can be variable size partition. So if you go for contiguous allocation and if you have fixed number of partition, so you have a 4 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM, and that 4 or 8 GB RAM is divided into some fixed number of, take the earlier slide. Suppose this is my program P2. P2 is loaded here. So P2 has a lot of instructions and data. In a particular instance, so of course these addresses in the inside the process is called the logical address. Logical address. So during the execution of the program, CPU will generate the logical address. CPU will generate the logical address. Let us assume that CPU generates the address of this particular instruction whose logical address is 450. Okay, now this corresponds to a particular instructions. To fetch that particular instructions, the CPU has to reach to the physical address, physical location of this silicon device. So there should be some kind of mapping to reach from this logical address to the physical address of the silicon device. How can it reach? It will reach by adding 450 with the base address. So process P2 is in this partition. This is the first requirement that will return that it is in this partition. The second, in this partition, the base address is this, and our logical address is 450. So 450 will added with this. So that will give you 30,454. Right. Now 30,454, is it within this limit? That has to check. Of course, the answer is yes. It is within this range. If it is within this range, that means this address is a valid address. That is 54 is a valid address. So CPU will directly reach to that particular location of the silicon device and will fetch the instructions to execute, or maybe the data. So again I am repeating, CPU will generate the logical address. Logical address will be added with the base address of that particular partition where the process is located. So base address plus the logical address will give you the actual address. Now you have to check whether the actual address is within that limit. Suppose I am calling a student of your batch with a roll number 180. The moment I ask roll number 180, please stand, somebody will say, sir, our class doesn't have roll number 180. Because roll number 180 is beyond the limit of your strength. Your roll number start from 1 to probably 160 or 165, I think. So the moment I ask arbitrarily that please roll number 180, stand up and tell me the answer of these questions. So somebody may tell me that, sir, roll number 180 does not exist in our class. That is not a valid roll number for our batch. Similarly, first it has to check the physical address generated by memory management unit, whether it is a valid address or it is an invalid address. If it is a valid address, then go to that particular physical location of the main memory and fetch the instruction for execution. Yeah, that is the flowchart of this. So CPU will generate the logical address. Is a logical address. That logical address will be added with the base address. This. Next, it will be checked whether within it is base and limit. So it should be within this. If the answer is yes, that means first checking is this, then second checking is this. If both are yes, then it will reach to the physical address where the actual instruction is located. So if this case happens or this case happens, there is an error in addressing. As I said, if I ask that please roll number 180 stand up, someone of you will say, sir, roll number 180 does not exist in our batch. So that is my addressing error. I address a roll number which does not exist in your batch. There can be variable size. Variable size means not fixed size partition. The partitions are allocated, partitions are done dynamically. So there is no partition as such in the RAM. There is no partition as such. You have OS. A process comes with a requirement of maybe 500 KB and we are going for contiguous allocations. You allocate in P1 with 500 kb. Next process comes P2 with a requirement of 600 kb. You put it there. Because we are not going for fixed size partition, sizes are dynamically allocated. P3 comes with a requirement of maybe 800 kb. You put it there. There is another program which comes with a requirement of maybe 1200 kb. Now the situation is all the process may not be finished at the same time. For example, this process get finished. So this space will be deleted, that 500 space. After some times, this process is also finished. So another space of 800 kb free. So here you see there is a vacant space of 500 kb. There is a vacant space of 800 kb. Now think of a situation, there is another process P10 which is coming with a requirement of maybe 1300 kb requirement. You don't have space because this is 500 kb, this is 800 kb. In together it is 1300 kb, but you are going for, and that 500 plus 800 is of non-contiguous. They are not in a contiguous fashion. 500 plus 800, they are not in a contiguous fashion. So you cannot reuse it. Though in total you have 500 plus 800 kb space, but you cannot use it. So that is the drawback of variable size partition. I mean dynamically allocation the partition. So that's why this problem also suffer from external fragmentation. This process also suffer from both external fragmentation. Internal fragmentation you may, okay, no, yeah, of course it can also face the internal fragmentation as well, because suppose another process come with a 400 requirement, you can allocate 400, so there will be a wastage of 100 kb. Okay, so under contiguous you can have fixed partition, you can have variable partition. Under fixed partition you can have fixed size partition, sizes are same size partition, variable size partition. And another can be under contiguous, that is it can be dynamically do the partition, this one. So this internal and external fragmentation can be reduced, particularly the external fragmentation can be reduced by a mechanism called compaction. Compaction is a mechanism which allows you to minimize the external fragmentation. What is that? External fragmentation says, this is allocated, this is allocated, this is allocated. Compaction says you bring all the allocated space to one side of the memory and all the free partitions to another side of the memory. Bring all the allocated space or the data of the allocated space to one side of the memory and bring all the free space to the other side of the memory to make a contiguous free space. That means instead of keeping a small free space, bring all and make them compact. Okay, this mechanism is called compaction. that will make you a contiguous large free space. Contiguous large free space. Now, there is an issue. During the compaction mechanism, as the instructions and data of the allocated space will be shifted from one place to other place of the memory. So during the compaction, CPU cannot execute those instructions. Okay, that's why repeated compaction is not desirable. That degrades the performance of the system. So there is a famous example with the compaction. Have you ever seen that you have classes in the first 4 period in the morning? First period is in the computer science building. The second period is in the new academic block. Third class is in the main academic building. And the fourth class is in the computer science building. Have you ever seen this type of class routine? Bolo. Have you ever seen this type of class routine where 4 classes, 4 theory classes, 4 continuous 4 classes, first period, second period, third period, fourth period, are in 4 different buildings in the department, in the institute?
Yes, sir.
कभी देखा है सब क्लास रूटीन?
Yes, sir.
NIT में?
सर कभी-कभी होता है.
कभी-कभी होता है. So what do you people used to do? First year, okay. So what you people used to do? No, never. Even if it takes 2 minutes to reach from computer science building to main building, you people will be taking 10 minutes to reach there. And you will be telling, sir, वो टीचर ने नहीं छोड़ा, देर कर दिया छोड़ने में. Because you will be utilizing this. Of course, that is a funny thing in the engineering life. We used to do the same thing. It is not an issue. So that's why while designing the class routine by the academic section has to take this type of measure. That if it is a lab class, lab should be in a contiguous fashion in the same lab room. If it is a theory class, and that should be 4 contiguous theory class, and that should be in the same classroom. Otherwise, if you have to shuffle from one classroom to another classroom, that will be wastage of time, unnecessary wastage of time. And during this shuffle from one classroom to another classroom, there will be no academic activities done. Sure, this is a wastage of academic hours. There is a wastage of academic hours. And repeated shuffling of classroom from first period to second period to third period is not desirable in any class routine. That is not desirable. Sometimes we had to do it, but that is not desirable, because that degrades the performance of the academic calendar. We are supposed to get 1 hour time. 1 hour time during this shuffle. Instead of 1 hour, we will be getting 50 minutes or 45 minutes due to shuffle, changing from one classroom to another classroom. So that's why repeated shuffling of classroom from one classroom to another classroom during the first half or in the second half, that is not desirable. The same thing, compaction is not desirable. But in other way, sometimes it is necessary to reduce the external fragmentation. But during this compaction, as the instructions and data are shifted from one part of the memory to the other part of the memory, so no valuable task is being executed by the CPU. Okay, so the next is your non-contiguous allocations. So that is all about your contiguous allocations. We discussed memory allocations. Sorry. First we discuss the contiguous, then non-contiguous. So in the non-contiguous, the first, it is also divided into two approach: paging and is the segmentation. Paging and segmentation. So we will be discussing under non-contiguous allocations both the paging as well as segmentation. So you have another class, I think, Bivas. Hello? Do you have class today with Bivas, sir? Hello?
স্যার এসকে স্যার নিচ 3টে থেকে জানি না বিভাস স্যার নেবে কিনা এখন।
Okay. Devam is there? Okay then. So in the next class I will be discussing with paging. Okay. Maybe he has a class. I don't know. Anyway, okay.